Cybersecurity has always been a bit of a problem thing, and the question I really wanted to ask is it a wicked problem? And so what are wicked problems? The idea coming from policy research and management research about problems which are difficult or impossible to solve because of their, even to define the problem is forever difficult, and the requirements on wicked problems are forever changing. It's very difficult to recognize wicked problem, and earlier today we heard that there are lots of places which have got compromised and they don't even know that they've got compromised. They don't even know that they have a security problem. And often solving one wicked problem goes and creates other wicked problems. So the idea goes back to 1967, Churchman, and then probably around the same time Rittel and Weber came up with this idea, but there's a more compact, they had a 10-point version, there's a 6-point version due to Conklin. So the problems are not well understood and they get identified only while you're formulating a solution. You don't know if you've ever solved it because there's this complexity due to social and technical reasons, and in fact how social and technical reasons interact. And you don't know whether your solution is right or wrong, and because there's no definitive solution. And at best you can say that the problem has been ameliorated. You can never say it's been solved, because you'll come up with a new problem if the moment you solve one. It's like a hydra, you cut off one head and then more heads come. Every wicked problem is unique and it's novel. So you can't forever think, and this is for various reasons. There will be legal implications, there will be financial implications, there will be political implications. You fix one thing and something else goes out of kilter. You don't have the luxury of trying a trial and error approach to it. You have a one shot at it, and whether you can kill the head of that head of the hydra is one thing. Then the other problem is that they don't have any alternative solutions. So there are lots of reasons to believe that cybersecurity falls into this category of wicked problems. I mean, sounds like I'm just talking in the air, but if you really look at it, as computer scientists, we like to think of cybersecurity as a computer science problem, but in fact, it's very, very multidisciplinary. I'm going to start at the bottom because that's where, and one of the speakers today said, that NVIDIA was NVIDIA was so Swati said it, or Chika said it, I think. Swati said it, NVIDIA, and it makes sense, because if you look at the big challenges like Spectre and Meltdown and all, they start from really hardware. If your hardware is insecure, you've already opened yourself up for attack. You can have timing attacks, you can have energy side channel attacks, your caches can reveal information, your memory, your processor, all of these can reveal information. So if you really think about it like a water tank and a pump and pipes, you can have leaks at every different place. So your hardware needs to be secure, or as secure as you can possibly make it. The theory depends on cryptography, and we've already heard a couple of things about complexity theory, elliptic curve cryptography, post-quantum cryptography. We've already heard some wonderful developments out there. But complementing cryptography, you also have an area which is very dear to my heart, which is that there's logic also involved. And these logics are not the usual first order logic. These are really modal logics of knowledge and belief. And you get into a sweet spot of talking about things which have got a little bit of probability, a little bit of logic, a little bit of computation theory, and things like zero knowledge proofs. These are the sort of foundational bases for secure systems, for security. And then above that you have system security. And this is a very CS-like problem, and you have, whether it's operating systems, whether it's the cloud, whether it's frameworks like Android, you need to secure these. And right now these are actually being programmed in very, very low level languages. C or below sea level languages. There's a great effort in Australia by the Cell4 group, Gervin Klein and so on are involved, of making a verified OS kernel. And that's really where I think there's a huge contribution to. And from building on that is where I think good operating system security research is going to happen. Then, of course, we've always thought of security having been, connected with the network and protocol research. And I wish I had a visual here of Sir Roger Needham, because Roger Needham came up with this lovely quotable phrase which says that security protocols are 3 lines which you can get horribly wrong. They're 3-line pieces of code which you can get horribly wrong. And he himself lived and found errors in protocols that he had proved in quotes correct, only to find that 11, 12, 13 years later there were bugs in the protocol. So you have actually at the one end you have protocol research. That's a lot of my research started there, working on protocols correctness for these small things, and I'm still doing some of that work with people at INRIA in France and Abhishek Bichawat in Gandhinagar, of making sure that multi-party messaging is secure. But then you also have network formulations and things like middle boxes, NATs, autonomous systems, ISPs. All of these have to be secured, and you've got very solid systems research happening there. I come back to protocol verification out here, and just, key exchange is so basic, so fundamental to get it right. And even if you get the theory right, you get the specification right, you don't know your implementation is going to be right. So working our way up, this is another area that I've been working on. I'm not the top researcher in this, but some very interesting research happening now on language-based security. So it's your programming language and your compilers, are they going to generate for you correct and secure code? And for a long time we just talk about correctness of your program and what is secure, that it not only does what it's supposed to do, it doesn't do anything else. So it's a nice way of talking about what security really is. But this is at a language or a systems level, when you put together databases and so on. And then you have application stuff, blockchain, smart contracts. I'm going to take a little pot shot at that at one point in the talk. But above all, as Ranjan said in the morning, that there's this whole social dimension to it, and education is really important. And I see there's a book out there of the IIT Kanpur people talking about security education. Right, so let me just get to some home truths on cybersecurity. So it is not identical to cryptography. It's a whole lot of things. And talking about this analogy with the water system in your house with a tank and a pump and pipes, cryptography takes care of data in motion. This is what my collaborator Dave Coates at Dartmouth used to call it, data in motion. But you've got data at rest sitting in your databases, and access control is the kind of idea that you need to talk about. I've been more interested in data during, can it leak during computation? And this has also got to do all the way down to the hardware processor. And this is a whole area which starts in 1976 with Dorothy Denning and Peter Denning later, about secure information flow, which is, you can think of it as access control in perpetuity. And here's the home truth, that most cybersecurity threats arise not from problems in any of those individual things, but just bad systems engineering. So I'm putting on my hat as a software engineer, as a computer scientist, and it's like, you've got this fancy door, you've got this terrific vault out there, the latest of locks out there, and then you go and hide the key under the mat. So that's really the problem that most of the time you have. And why is it a difficult computer science problem? Because security is an end-to-end problem. It's not, piecemeal. The greatest weapon that computer science had and has is this business of compositionality. You can take a complex system, break it down into simpler systems, solve them, get them right, and put them together. unfortunately, security is not always amenable to doing compositional, composing correct systems together. And then there's this tremendous temptation, I would say, a lure that computer scientists have of centralizing things, believing that if I centralize authority, I centralize things, I will make things secure. And this arises from our brain always being conditioned to work towards optimal systems, trying to get efficiency. And efficiency is really an enemy of security. Because if you make things too efficient, or if you make them too centralized, you're actually creating an Achilles heel. And I'm going to take some pot shots at how things are done in India here. We've got lots of databases, and these older databases basically were reasonably secure because you relied on joining databases to be a complicated, expensive activity. It took time and so on. And now you come up with this great idea saying, I'm going to have one identity based on Aadhaar, right? What did you do? You made taking joins dirt cheap. And so you took systems which by themselves were reasonably secure or functionally secure. They were not great, they were not terrifically secure, they had insecurities in them. But you just made it like opening your floodgates and said, okay, come on in. I'm giving you an open invitation to take joins at no cost. So your Aadhaar actually makes things more insecure when you link other databases to it. They become insecure. Aadhaar may be secure, but the other databases become very insecure. And think about the nightmare of your medical databases. And if you look at the papers today, you've got a whole lot of phone banking scams happening. And this is because we did poor systems engineering. There's nothing wrong with Aadhaar in that respect, but you did really poor system engineering. And the other thing I think is a downright bad error is to make something which is biometric. Your fingerprints are not secret. They're not well known, but they're not secret. To make it a password is a really dangerous idea. I know there's publishers in the room, but I'm going to plug two books which I've midwifed recently. One is a great book, and I suggest everybody read this one. It's about the work of Whit Diffie and Marty Hellman called Democratizing Cryptography. The other one is an older book. I had less to do with it in being the publisher of it. And it's the work of Shafi Goldwasser and Silvio Micali. The thing is that these two books are so good, I'm finding it very hard to bring out a book on Revesz, Shamir, and Edelman, because these books have covered so much of the ground. But I would say Democratizing Cryptography is a great book because it tells you really about democratizing how much that public key infrastructure really made cryptography not the domain of NSA, but really a democratic thing. How much time do I have?
2 more minutes.
2? Okay, I'm going to skip the technical part and go ahead. So one of the mistakes we make, and this is something I learned from Steve Bellowin, is that we assume who the adversary is, and we should never do that. It's not always a hostile outsider. It's usually an insider. We should not presume what their motivation is. It could be any of these, and worst of all, a well-meaning but less than competent developer. Our fundamental thing which we need is a trusted base, because security cannot be a post facto bolt-on. It must be there ab initio. And one problem we have is we tend to put too much computational power in our components. And what that ends up doing is allowing subsystems to act as oracles or dupes, or unforeseen transformers which act as conduits. The lesson here is keep your trusted computer base minimal and make sure that every component is verifiable. I wish adversarial thinking was part of our first computing course. These are two things which we do in protocol analysis, but there are only two parts of computer science which assume that there's an adversary. One is cryptography and the other is distributed computing. I think it should be there in your first programming course. The context in which your program is going to run, assume it's adversarial. That's the piece of software engineering advice. The pot shot I want to take against blockchains is that people think, saying, oh, I'll make it secure by putting everything on a blockchain. The problem really is all the scalability, all those usual problems. But the one which I really want to highlight is that your virtual world may have nothing to do with the physical world which you're trying to secure. And this is a specification problem, which people seem to say, I've got it on a blockchain, it's tamper-proof and so on. But how do you know it corresponds to reality? In cyber-physical systems, this is really the worst place where you can have attacks. This is again IoT big, I've been reviewing things which are very buzzword high. It's got blockchain, it's got IoT, it's got quantum computing, it's got AI and stuff. And then we go and build systems which allows you to take control of a Jeep on the road and put it into a ditch. And it's just 4 pieces individually the parts are fine. It's just very, very bad combinations of systems. The alternative I'm sorry, I'm going to take a couple of minutes more. The alternative that I propose is actually you should build correct and secure by construction software. Program in a high language, not in a low language, in a high level language, and have a verified compiler generate for you reliable code. That's the approach taken in the Cell 4 OS to make sure that every component of yours, even the code you generate, is reliable. Put it onto secure hardware, and then do another proof to show that together they work correct. I like to play with words, and I say that, one of the things which we should do is not trustworthy computing, it's trustworthy computing. And when you trust things on, you actually might create new surfaces to attack. And so I'm not sure if that fortress is easier to attack or harder to attack when you try to do some renovation. This is a pun I started playing with when I heard Bill Gates talk about it in 2005 when he was talking about trustworthy computing, and I was hearing it as trustworthy. And so I have an idea of what a truss is. It is an add-on piece of software which is lightweight but reduces the attack surface. That is what you should always put. That's the minimal stuff you should put on to your systems to make them safe, secure, and correct. I'm going to stop here, but it's also the other piece of advice is that always monitor the behavior of your system. You can use machine learning as a good monitoring technique, and always understand the cyber-physical limitations of your system. So I'm going to stop here, and I'll be happy to take questions.